Persimmon just effectively wiped £900 million off the value of their land. Just like that, 900 million gone. And you have to understand that isn't just a loss on paper. That is them admitting that the land they bought to build houses on is now basically worthless. And they aren't the only ones. Taylor Wimpey wrote down 600 million. Barratt took a 400 million hit. If you combine the top 10 builders in the UK, they have written off £3.7 billion in land value in just the last 6 months. To put that in perspective, that is the entire GDP of Montenegro just evaporating because the land they need to build on has turned into a toxic asset. Now, everyone is focused on the profit collapse over at Vistory. But that's just the symptom, not the disease. The real crisis here is that UK home builders are sitting on the most expensive, useless asset in history, land that they can't build on profitably. Here is exactly what happened. Between 2015 and 2022, these builders went on a massive land buying spree. Interest rates were near zero, home prices were soaring, and they borrowed billions to buy land at peak prices. They thought they would build and sell for massive profits. Persimmon alone owns enough land for 90,000 homes. Taylor Wimpey has 68,000 plots. Barratt has 80,000. Combined, the major builders own land for over 400,000 houses that they haven't built yet. So why haven't they built them? Because the math has completely flipped. The land was bought assuming houses would sell for £300,000. But today they would need to sell them for £400,000 just to break even. The problem is buyers can't pay that. Buyers can barely afford £200,000. So builders are effectively trapped. They are holding on to land that is worth less than what they paid for it. They can't build without taking massive losses, and they can't sell the land because nobody else can make the numbers work either. I've actually obtained planning data that reveals something pretty extraordinary. In 2023, builders submitted planning applications for 312,000 homes. Take a guess at how many they actually started building? 43,000. That means 86% of the housing that got approved, the builders simply chose not to build. They have the land. They have the permits. They have the blueprints. But they aren't building. The government knows this is happening. They've known for 18 months thanks to internal briefings from the Department for Levelling Up. They are fully aware that builders are sitting on these permissions. Their solution? Threaten the builders. Force them to build or lose their planning permission. But here is what the government doesn't understand. Builders would much rather lose the permit than build at a loss. And right now, virtually every house built is a loss. Look at the math. The average cost to build a 3-bedroom house is £240,000. The average selling price in most of England is £260,000. That leaves a margin of just £20,000. That entire profit margin vanishes with one delay, one problem, or one mistake. What nobody is really reporting, though, is how fast this situation is accelerating. 6 months ago, builders were still pretending everything was fine. Now, it's total capitulation. MJ Gleeson, a company that focuses on affordable housing, just announced they are stopping land purchases entirely. They aren't buying a single plot. Berkeley Group, a luxury developer, saw sales drop 41%. Crest Nicholson issued 3 profit warnings in just 6 months. But the smaller builders? They are getting absolutely annihilated. Last month, 412 construction companies went into administration. 412 in a single month. That is 13 companies going under every single day. And these aren't fly-by-night operations. These are established firms, some that have been operating for decades, gone overnight because the numbers just stopped working. I spoke to the owner of a mid-sized builder in Manchester. He's been in business for 30 years and has 200 employees. He is closing down next month. His exact words to me were, "I can lose money slowly by not building or lose it quickly by building. Either way, I'm finished." Everyone keeps talking about buyers not being able to afford mortgages. But there is a bigger problem lurking here. Builders can't get development finance. Development finance is how builders fund construction. They borrow against the land value and the sales they expect to make. Here is the continuation of the script, rewritten to be spoken naturally in American English. Spoken audio script. But the banks have discovered something terrifying. The collateral is worthless. HSBC just stopped all development lending to builders with less than 100 million in turnover. That effectively cuts off 90% of UK builders. Lloyds reduced their development book by 60%. Santander won't touch land deals at all. Without this financing, builders can't build even if they wanted to. They are sitting on land supposedly worth billions, but they can't develop it because nobody will lend against it. The banks know what's coming. They're protecting themselves by cutting off the industry's oxygen. But that is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Without lending, the builders collapse, which makes the bank's worst fears a reality. And here is something that guarantees this crisis will last a decade. The workers are gone forever. Bricklaying apprenticeships are down 78% since 2019. Carpentry training is down 64%. Plumbing apprenticeships are basically non-existent. Young people aren't entering construction because they've watched their fathers get destroyed. Why train for 3 years just to join a dying industry? The Federation of Master Builders reports that the average age of a UK construction worker is now 53. 53. In 7 years, half of them will retire, and there is nobody standing behind them to take their place. But it gets worse. The experienced workers are leaving the country. 15,000 construction workers moved to Australia last year. 8,000 went to Canada. They're getting double the wages and actual job security. UK construction is experiencing a skills extinction event. Even if demand returned tomorrow, we literally couldn't build because we don't have the workers. And you can't train a bricklayer overnight. It takes years to develop those skills, years that we just don't have. Now, something happened in 2023 that nobody really connected to UK housing. China's property market collapsed. Evergrande, Country Garden, massive developers defaulted. Why does this matter to UK builders? Because Chinese buyers were keeping UK new builds alive. They weren't living in them, they were investing, buying off-plan, often purchasing entire floors of developments. That money has completely vanished. In 2019, Chinese buyers purchased 23,000 UK new build properties. Last year, that number was 1,200. That is a 95% collapse in Chinese demand. But it's the knock-on effect that is lethal. Chinese buyers often bought the units nobody else wanted: studio apartments, awkward layouts, bad positions. They made developments viable by absorbing the unsellable units. Without them, developers are stuck with properties that literally nobody wants. There is a development in Birmingham with 80 studio apartments that have been on the market for 2 years without a single sale. The developers are now offering them at 50% off, and there are still no buyers. And finally, your pension is about to discover just how exposed it is to house builders. Legal & General owns significant stakes in most major builders. Standard Life is heavily invested. Aviva has massive exposure. These pension funds thought house builders were safe investments, steady returns, government-backed demand. I mean, what could go wrong? Everything. Persimmon's stock price is down 63% from its peak. Taylor Wimpey is down 54%. Barrett is down 58%. That translates to hundreds of millions in pension value that has been destroyed. Your retirement savings are being decimated because fund managers believed house builders were defensive stocks, safe bets. But the indirect exposure is actually worse. Pension funds own the land that builders lease. They own the commercial property builders use. They own the bonds the builders issued. When the builders collapse, all of those assets become worthless. The Pension Protection Fund estimates that 16% of UK pension assets have direct or indirect exposure to house building. When this sector crashes, that is £200 billion of pension wealth at risk. Right now, dozens of major builders are technically insolvent. They are zombie companies, dead but still walking. So how are they doing it? Creative accounting. They value their land at the purchase price, not the current market value. They value work in progress at the final selling price, not its actual worth. They even book future sales as current assets. If builders marked their assets to the actual market value, most of them would show negative equity immediately. But accounting rules let them pretend that land bought for millions is still worth millions, even when it's worthless. This creates a totally surreal situation. You have builders reporting profits while they can't pay their suppliers. They claim to have strong balance sheets while laying off thousands of people. They announce new developments while abandoning the ones they already started. The auditors know this. They are adding going concern warnings to the accounts. That is accounting speak for, this company might not exist next year. So the government faces an impossible choice. Do they let the builders collapse and accept that no new houses will be built for a decade? Or do they bail them out and admit the free market has failed? They are already discussing emergency measures, state-backed finance, the government buying up land, and directly commissioning social housing. Basically, it's socialism for house builders. But here is the hard truth: they can't afford it. The bailout required to fix this would be hundreds of billions of dollars, and the UK simply doesn't have that kind of money. The country is already borrowing just to keep the lights on. So, they are going to do what governments always do: pretend everything is fine publicly, while quietly preparing for a disaster behind the scenes. Emergency housing legislation is already being drafted. They are looking at powers to seize empty properties and making plans for temporary housing for when the wave of repossessions hits. They know exactly what is coming. They know mass homelessness is inevitable when builders stop building and people start losing their current homes. They are planning for it while denying it to the public. And when these UK builders finally collapse, they won't be replaced by other British companies. They are going to be bought out by international megacorporations that have been waiting for this exact moment. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund has already earmarked $40 billion for distressed UK property. Singapore's Temasek is raising a UK Opportunity Fund. Canadian pension funds are explicitly targeting these failed builders. Their plan is to buy the land banks for pennies on the dollar. They will wait for the market to stabilize, and then build rental-only developments. You will never own a home, you will only rent from international landlords. This isn't speculation, it is already starting. A Middle Eastern fund just bought a failed development in Leeds for 20% of the construction cost. They are going to finish it, rent it out, and never sell it. The entire future of UK housing is being sold off to foreign capital while we watch the builders collapse. 5 years from now, the majority of new UK homes will be owned by international funds and rented to British families who will never have the chance to buy. The housing shortage is about to turn into a full-blown housing catastrophe. This year, builders might complete 150,000 homes. Next year, optimistically, maybe 100,000. After that, it could drop to 50,000. We need 300,000 new homes every single year just to break even. We are about to build 1/6 of that. The supply shortage is going to become so severe that any standing property will be valuable, regardless of its condition. This creates a perverse incentive. Why bother maintaining a property when scarcity makes even a ruin valuable? Why build quality homes when people are so desperate they will accept anything? We are entering a world where housing is driven purely by scarcity economics. Simply put, those who have win. And for those who don't own a home now, they probably never will. The collapse of these builders today is setting the stage for a permanent housing crisis tomorrow. When people can't find a place to live, societies start to break down. The UK is about to learn this lesson the hard way. Youth homelessness is already up 400%. Families living in temporary housing is at record highs. 3 generations living under one roof is becoming the new normal because nobody can afford to move out. But when the builders stop building entirely, when that pipeline of new homes hits zero, that is when social cohesion falls apart. You cannot have a functioning society where only the wealthy have a roof over their heads. The government is actually modeling scenarios where civil unrest becomes a likely outcome. They are looking at a future where the housing crisis breaks normal politics. They aren't planning for a recovery anymore, they are planning for containment. Here is how this ends. The private homebuilding industry in the UK effectively ceases to exist by the end of this decade. And what replaces it won't be British and it won't be private. The government will be forced to step in as the builder of last resort. But they will do it through international partnerships because the UK simply doesn't have the capability anymore. We're talking about Chinese state construction companies building British social housing. Saudi funds owning entire British towns. Homeownership will become a historical curiosity, something people read about that their grandparents used to do. Future generations will rent from birth to death from international mega-landlords. The builders collapsing today aren't just companies failing. This marks the end of British housing as we know it. It is the end of the property-owning democracy. It is the end of the British dream of homeownership. The numbers are undeniable. 3.7 billion in land write-offs. 400,000 plots that can't be built on. 13 builders going under every single day. 90% of development finance pulled. This isn't a market correction or a temporary crisis. This is an extinction event for UK homebuilding. Think about it. Builders own land they can't develop, relying on workers who don't exist, selling to buyers who can't afford it, using financing that isn't there. Collapse isn't just probable, it is a mathematical certainty. The government has a target of 1.5 million new homes. They will be lucky to get 500,000. The housing shortage is about to become a housing impossibility. The property ladder is being pulled up permanently. If you own a home right now, you own an asset that can never be replaced at current construction rates. If you are hoping to buy, accept that you probably never will. And if you are a builder, you are already dead, you just haven't admitted it yet. The UK homebuilding industry didn't just fail. It discovered that the job is impossible. And impossibility doesn't have solutions, it only has consequences. If you value this kind of unfiltered analysis, the kind you aren't hearing in the mainstream news, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are going to keep tracking this collapse as it unfolds step by step. If you know someone who is struggling to buy, trying to sell, or just wants to understand the real economics behind the headlines, please share this video with them. They need to see the numbers. And finally, if you found this report valuable, please hit the like button. It helps us break through the algorithm and get this truth out to more people who need to hear it. Thanks for watching.